Okay, we're going to start the meeting. I'd like to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, so if we can all stand. Flags behind your folks. Oh, that one too, yeah. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So we'll start off with manifests.
I'll make a motion, we approve the accounts payable manifest of November 18th, 2019, and the payroll manifest of November 19th, 2019.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And approve of minutes. Somebody want to make a motion?
We're doing minutes for the 28th, right?
I think we need to do them separately, please.
You want them separate, all right?
I do.
So who wants to make a motion on the 28th?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of October 28th, 2019.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor? Okay. Was there a particular thing about the 4th?
I wasn't here.
Okay. So,
I will not make the motion, somebody else needs to make the motion.
you're right. You're absolutely right.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from November 4th.
Second that.
And we have a second. All in favor? One abstained. All right. Action review from last meeting.
I think we walked away without anything.
Yeah, okay. So, budgets, boards, we'll start with budget, anything?
Our budget committee met last week with we had the school here. They'll be meeting again on the 21st of November.
21st. Planning board?
Planning board meeting, still working with the Stratford regional people. Had one applicant come in and they were told to come back to the next meeting with stuff that needs to be revised.
Revised, okay. Zoning? Was there?
We don't have members on the zoning board.
No, assessing is ours, right?
The Board of Assessors, we just have regular timber tax and stuff like that to sign.
Okay, and Marston property?
Yeah, things at Marston are good. We've done, I think, as much as we can for the winter. There's just a little bit more to do. So the initial groundwork for phase 1 has been completed. Before the snow flies, they're looking at a quick germinating bed of rye grass seed for the actual playing fields. That should sprout quick enough in the spring to give us kind of a, at least a cover until we can have the contractor level the fields with the permanent seed. We are looking at probably looking at potentially opening in the spring of 2021. However, they're probably not going to be, they might be usable depending on how the seed goes in the fall of 2020. But spring of 2021 is kind of the realistic date of when it's going to start. The other thing I just wanted to mention is that we know that, there's been a lot of work done out there. It looks great. People are kind of anxious to get out there, but we would like people to refrain from walking on the athletic fields, right? Just to kind of remain off of any of the slopes, which are subject to erosion. But there are other spaces that, people can walk on once we kind of get the snow covered over the seed.
Have we thought about any signage to put out there, at least temporarily?
We have not, that's probably not a bad idea. Chris and I can talk about that.
Okay.
We've also updated a Facebook page to kind of promote the fundraising activities that are underway. We have defined, I think I shared this with you before, we've defined levels of sponsorship. And the big push for the committee this winter is to kind of go after some of those corporate sponsorships at those levels. I think they're 1,000, 1,200, 1,500, I think, are the numbers. So we're going to spend the winter pushing on the corporate sponsorships, and then in the spring, as more people are engaged in the games and stuff like that, we'll try to do a little bit more grassroots.
So what will that entail with the sponsorships? Their names put on something, or?
Yep, I will actually send you the flyer, but it does different levels of visibility, right? So some of
Yep.
it's website, some of it is like if somebody has a fencing company and they want to sponsor the fences, there'll be a huge banner.
Nice.
With their name. There's also an opportunity for what we're calling Friends of Marston. And that's kind of like for any amount underneath that 1,000. You know, somebody wants to give 10, 25, 200, whatever. That will be a Friends of Marston, and there'll be some visibility opportunities to thank those people as well. So, and we have a couple of grants opportunities that are still in progress as well that Chris and Courtney are working.
I must say that, you know, they got a little bit of a delayed start on breaking ground and all that stuff, but I was very impressed with how well they progressed and moved forward, and this is pretty much phase one, right?
Yep.
It's completed.
Exactly, and we
pretty
do have to,
impressive.
we do have to thank the Nottingham Highway Department, because there was some extra fill that was required, and they brought some in and got it in place, and really that activity helped us keep us, on track, so.
Awesome. Community working together.
Working together.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
No?
Isn't that enough?
Yeah, no, that's great, Donna. That's great news. 300?
300, they had a meeting the same night as the budget committee, so I didn't get to go, but Steve,
Okay.
I don't know if he was
Am I missing any other boards, sir?
300.
Can everybody hear me? Okay, all right.
Anyways, again, what we're pushing, the committee's pushing is these beautiful ornaments for the Christmas tree or medallion, which are available for $20. Chris is selling them in his office.
Not Chris. Hey. Nice.
All right. So, am I missing any other boards, right? I think I got covered all. Okay, town administrator report?
Just a few things. Thanks for helping beat the bushes on electricians for the old town hall. I heard from a couple of people after last meeting. We got some people anyway paying attention
Great.
to it.
Awesome.
We've been there once before, but hopefully we can turn that into some progress. Tax bills are out. Anybody that didn't get one, please let us know. We'll be happy to send you another one.
If you don't get it, do you have to pay it?
You do. Yep. And we're hoping to pave this week. We're watching the weather, but Ledge Farm and South Summer and Canton Court all be back-to-back days. Just watching the temperatures. But that's obviously the last big step.
So if, for whatever reason, they can't pave this week, is it done?
No, we can go as late as the plants are open.
Okay.
And that's gonna be temperature driven.
Right, okay.
But we seem to have a window here. We don't wanna wait. This was the week that we'd originally targeted, so.
No issues with traffic on Ledge Farm?
Well, it's certainly an inconvenience for folks, but we really haven't heard anything that's been pretty consistent. We tend to hear about such things and we haven't, so.
That's good.
There have been some questions on Facebook. I don't know how practical it is that if you can kind of like give updates, even if it's like weekly updates on the website.
Yeah, if we pave this week, then there won't be any more need for any closures. So we'll know the end of this week.
Awesome.
Okay,
And we'll be able to see the weather into next week, so.
okay.
Okay.
Couple changes along the way, things that didn't fit where we hoped they would and things like that, but we're still gonna be on track budget-wise. And same with Canton and South Summer, that's all pretty much ready to go.
Anything else?
No,
No? Okay. General business, the 2020 budget first draft?
do you wanna do that first? What's your pleasure? You wanna,
Yeah, why don't we do that, and then the cable, and we'll do the Class 5 after, last.
all right, so you have our first compilation of a budget. This is, we usually do a first draft, which is the kind of throw everything at it that we hear from the departments. And then spend the next 4 to 6 weeks drilling down on things and making sure we have the numbers right where we want them before we get to the point where you have to make the decisions on what stays and what goes. But this is pretty much a collection of everything I've heard from the departments and some of the elected boards and officials. Overall, if there were themes, I would say we're catching up on the personnel stuff. We've added people this year, and you see that showing up in lots of places. We've talked about those throughout the year and how they're gonna show up here, and sure enough, they do. We have a lot in highway, not just personnel, but projects, equipment, and little else in the way of town facility projects. We may see something from the fire department as a warrant article, but with a 5-year property reval and 4 elections next year, we've talked a little bit about offline about all of those kind of things that we've got to deal with all year. I don't think we're going to have a lot of time to take on a lot of project-based stuff. We're going to be chewed up with transitions and
Yeah.
And kind of absorbing the people that we've picked up this year. So that's where you see most of the costs, the elections costs are in there as well. So if there was a theme, I guess that would be it. If you want to run through some of the bigger stuff, I'll just hit the high points, and you can interrupt me wherever you want. As I said, we've got a lot of detail work to do, but we'll go through and talk about some of the bigger things. And the executive stuff, and sorry, before I do that, I will say a lot of things that next 6 weeks about anything that we might be able to do this year instead of next. If we have, we have a surplus this year, we often try and pull some of those things in, things that we know we're gonna do, just to speed them up and get them done before we get into this process. One of those things is IT related. Windows 7, the operating system Windows 7 is going to go out of service. It's not going to get supported or updated as of February, and we still have a number of machines running it. Working with the IT folks now on where do we replace hardware and where do we replace software.
Yep.
But it gets a little dicey to operate that stuff once it's out of support. So certainly anything that we're doing financial, we have to get off of that system. We may leave a couple legacy machines on it that we don't really connected to a network, just don't matter. But generally speaking, we need to get caught up there.
Tony providing input on that too.
Yeah, he mentioned that to me today, so he'll be helping with that. Let's see. Town clerk, you'll see.
Wait a minute.
Yep.
So payroll service?
Yeah, so that, I don't know, we've been talking this year about replacing our accounting software, and everything we've looked at, it seems to make sense to do that with payroll combined.
Okay.
We had thought we had the accounting software figured out, but in the last 3 weeks, we were really leaning toward the same system that the SAU just implemented. I've heard from a school board member and the superintendent, slow down, don't rush into that. I think they've had a choppy implementation. I think the product may be okay, but I'm gonna pull the reins back on that until we see how they get through their transition. Maybe learn something from them before we go too far.
How
So
far are they into with theirs?
I think they started their July 1 fiscal year with it. And they went cold turkey. They went one to the other. We'll be talking with them more about what they've learned before we leap. But there's really could be a lot of benefit to being on the same system with them, so I'm kind of rooting for that to come out okay.
Yeah.
Don't wanna move too fast,
Okay.
so. So anyway, lacking that, we may just go for a bridge year of a payroll service that we can get out, it's just a per transaction thing, it's not a big investment, so
Yep.
we may do that, because that's something we also really need to do, is get some redundancy in our payroll operation. We just have nothing right now, we pretty much have one person that knows how to do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we need to get out of that, so.
And that might free her up to help with other things.
Yeah, once you get a transition done with it, it should speed things up.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Anything else on that?
No,
Okay. Let's see, town clerk, you start to see a little bit around the election here, not anything dramatic. The election section, we're still working on the big ticket item here is the election workers. We look back at what we did in 2016. I think the moderator's number is a little bit less than what I had plugged in there. I think we'll probably be discussing pay rates. You'll see mention of pay rates in the supervisors of the checklist section. We don't have anything in here for food. We haven't made a decision on that yet. But we've got the presidential primary, September primary, town meeting in March, general election November.
It's gonna be a busy year.
Moderators working on that checkout process and what, perhaps doing it for some but not others, to kind of transition out of it, and the big chaotic ones maybe using it. Having enough people is gonna be a limiting factor there as much as having enough money, I think.
Yep.
We're still looking for people to work as ballot clerks at the election, so if anybody's interested, we can put you in touch with them. It's a neat way to, it's not, what is it not? It is, I wouldn't say it's not difficult, but you have to pay attention to details, and it's a neat way to visit with
something.
folks in town and help out the town at the same
Yeah.
time.
do something for the town.
So you get paid, but it's really community service. So that shows up there. You see that the payroll numbers there spike quite a bit, as to be expected. Let's see. I think that's really, that's an election. You know what that is. Finance, not much happening there outside of that possible software change we talked about. One thing, the very last line there, the tax collector has pretty well decided that he's not going to run for re-election in March when his term ends. And he's been pretty public about that, so I think that's probably a final decision. Anytime you switch tax collectors, you got to do a brief little audit, and as part of that handoff from one to the other, so you see some funds in there for that. Assessing, this is a reval year, but that cost is covered by the reserve fund that we deposit money into each year, so no dramatic changes there. I'm trying to do this electronically and wishing I hadn't. Assessing, personnel administration, so this is always, legal I skipped over. Legal's always a bit of a guess. We're gonna be right up against that number this year. We still have one open case, and a few things going on that they're involved in, nothing major, but
Are we thinking of increasing it at all for next year?
We might need to. The, so health insurance for employees is our biggest single line item. Our premium rates for the plan that we have now are going up 7%, 7.4. We've picked up, remember we picked up a heavy equipment operator in highway department, and we moved one police officer position from part-time to full-time that's benefit eligible. So that is those three things are driving this cost up. To put it to scale for you, a family premium for health insurance is around $21,000 a year. Town pays 85% of that, the employee pays 15% of that, to put that to scale for you.
Yeah.
I am kind of noodling with a second plan option. They've offered us a high deductible plan. You may have those in your workplaces. I'm noodling with that to see if we maybe could make that as an option and carry two plans to make, pass some savings back to the employees in exchange for a higher deductible, depending on.
So would that involve the town covering some of the deductible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which we do already in some cases, but we would self-insure that to some extent.
Yeah.
I don't know if it works from an employee perspective. I think there's a couple cases where it might actually make sense for them to pay less in a premium, depending on how much they use their insurance.
Yeah.
And what kind of risk they want to take versus,
Yeah.
what they're comfortable with. So I may have some, we're waiting for Health Trust to come by and talk through some things with us. Continue to try and find a way to make a health savings account work, but the plans that are eligible for those so I don't think we can make that work. Every year I try to make the math work and it just never does. Other line you see a big change in is police retirement. That's the same. Those are the big changes there. We may see some contribution holidays later in the year. Sometimes these numbers get pulled back a little bit. That's always a bit of a surprise. It won't go up from here, but it may go down. Planning, last year for this year, we came into the year not knowing how we were going to do the contract planner, whether it was going to be a mix of employees and contracts or what have you. The Stratford Regional arrangement, where we have contracted a planner to do just about everything, is working really quite well for the planning board. I think it's working great from a staff point of view. I expect we will renew that when it comes up in the middle of next year. This, so that full cost is in there, which is less than what we came into the year expecting it might be. You see that disappear on the master plan town map line there. That was a bit of a hedge coming into this year. We didn't know how we were going to do that, so we'll save a little bit there overall. Zoning is uneventful. Facilities, we have yet, depending on what happens with the old town hall, we don't really know where we're going to finish this year on that line. We also wanted to do work on the kitchen in here. I don't have a number in there for that right now.
So that's not reflected yet. You're showing minus 18 on that line, but that doesn't reflect.
That is just routine
Yeah.
maintenance here.
Yeah.
That's not
Yep.
any project-related stuff.
Yep.
As we come through the old town hall, maybe we come back and look at that one, where our number is pretty high right now on the bottom line. I didn't put that in there. I want to do that project, but
Yeah.
That-
I mean, I personally would like to see that in there, but
yeah, so there's a pin in that one.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that. The next big one is the highway shed. That's the waste oil furnace that we've had on the radar for a while. We sink a couple $3,000 a year into that sometimes, trying to keep it moving. spend a lot of days without heat in the winter. So we've got a $20,000 number in here to convert that to propane. We'll refine that a little bit, but that's the neighborhood that we know it's gonna be in. Electric is, it's a nightmare to chase all the bills with the solar stuff. I think these numbers may come down a little bit. The heating oil and propane is also tough to project. We saw some price increases, but we may have been a little extra on the budget to begin with, so that's another number we tweak in December when we get a full year behind us. We consolidated the phone and internet accounts this year, so a lot of those lines kind of disappear from all the departments that you've seen before. We don't have anything in here for major work on the cemetery. Highway department can do support money around the roads, but no big investments there at this point. On to other flavors. Workers' comp, we enjoyed a contribution holiday for this year. We'll probably see something again there. We can't count that until we actually see it. When the pool results come back, they share the surplus that they had in the pool with the members. So we often see that number come down a little bit. But we don't know until the year is done really what that's gonna look like. All right, what's next? Police? Oh, no. Yes, police. So you see here, the addition of a full-timer and the subtraction of a part-timer on those first three lines. That same thing shows up in the retirement line, the health line, it's all in there. The rest of those, there's a little bit of IT work left to finish up the cruisers. That's been a battle to get the IT inside in the building to line up with the new hardware in the cruisers. And I think we're all good with Windows operating systems in the police department, so we're chasing some IMC, that's the security stuff for the police data. I think those numbers are gonna be heavy when we get down to it. I think we got a little bit of room there. And
I have a question.
Yep.
Where it says on police department there, we talk about the police department office equipment, and then the IT services on the line right up.
Yep.
They're not similar? No?
What, do we have two lines that are kind of the same thing?
Well, no, you have radar calibration, which I understand that is for, and then
Yep.
IT services, is that for the cruisers? And then IMC maintenance, and then, two lines down,
Yep.
server backup systems, wireless extenders, they both, isn't that both under IT services?
Yeah, some of it's hardware and some of it's service, but I'll get some more detail on that.
It's just a,
Yeah, I think it's probably distinct, probably hardware. I'll get some. Cruiser, this is the year we'll replace the last Taurus with an Explorer, and nothing is gonna move from the Taurus, all the bars and the radios and all the lights and everything that we often move from one vehicle to the next because it outlives the vehicle. We won't be able to do that next year because we're going from Taurus to Explorer.
So that's gonna add more cost
It's
to
gonna
the,
add more cost, yeah.
Is there anything you can do with this stuff that you can't move over?
Occasionally there's a market for it, but not
Okay.
often, yeah.
so how many cars have that equipment in there, but it goes through, what, 2 cars typically?
That equipment typically lasts 2 cycles, yeah.
Yeah,
And they
it's-
changed the Explorer changed this year, so, actually, I think a lot of the old Explorer stuff is having a hard time making the move because they changed the design. So every 5, 7 years, they change the design enough that the accessories don't make the move.
Right.
But we gotta, the car and trade-in number is pretty hard, it's a pretty solid number. The accessory number tends to bounce around a little bit as you get closer to the end of the year.
So it looks like the trade-in value of the vehicle has gone down. Wasn't
Probably.
it 7,800 or 7,500 last year?
That seems high. I don't know if it was that much,
So
but,
my question is, I noticed the repurposed police cruiser now sitting outside the,
yeah, the new one's here and,
Yeah.
yep.
so, and that's gonna be for Sean?
Yeah, or for highway guys to run around, leave
So-
town with or whatever, yep.
I was kind of going through this budget, and I'm looking at line by line, a lot of mileage reimbursement. And to me, it looks like our building inspector, aside from Sean, is the next highest person that we pay for mileage
Yeah.
reimbursement.
Yep.
So, that being said, after adding up everybody's mileage that would be afforded to them, it's almost as much as it would be for the trade-in value of the police cruiser. So, save a little money on reimbursement fees, why don't we repurpose that one as a town administrator car? The building inspector can use it, and so on.
Yeah, why don't, we'll do that math around, it's the maintenance and all that other stuff that, they get older, they get.
No, I hear you, I mean,
You'd also have to look at timing conflicts, right? I mean, can everybody wait their turn, or are there simultaneous things that have to occur?
okay, but,
No, I'm not saying that it's not a good thing to look at, I'm just saying that there's other considerations.
Yeah, if we had a car that was primarily for the building inspector, it would be difficult to use it for anything else because he's pretty much in the field from 10 to 2, Monday to
Right.
Thursday, right? So
Yeah.
there'd be limited other uses for it, but we can do that math, certainly.
Yeah.
On that. Okay. Anything else on PD? Fire, the chief's proposing to add, remember this year, we added quite a bit to the part-time salary line to add per diem coverage for evenings and Saturdays. He's proposing here to extend that to Sunday. It seems to be working well. I think we're filling that shift, I don't know, maybe 2/3 of the time, I think, the last time I looked. Here again, people is the limiting factor more than anything. Right now, Sundays are covered, I think it's an officer and a per diem shift, I don't know. I gotta learn that better, but.
Yep.
Anyway, that's where he's headed there. And everything else is uneventful there. Building inspector, emergency management, highway. So we pick up, again, picking up a full-timer and pulling back on part-time. We also have a public works director budgeted for the full year. We did a part of the year this year that we're in. So that's what that's the full-time line.
Mowing and, is that accounting for Marston, or?
No, this is roadside mowing. Mowing, we've had a hard time getting both mowing and street sweeping done every year for a while. We often get one but not the other, or not enough of it. Well, what we really need to get into a groove of is mowing consistently. It's just been too hit or miss, and I think we have somebody that can do it, but it's just been too haphazard.
So that's why the increase.
Yeah.
so, but if my understanding, we do have some environmental issues.
We do. The knotweed
Yeah.
question is, we're gonna have to tackle that. We've got a little, we can use some of this if we wanna do something other than just mowing.
Okay.
We've got something to do that here. We don't have a plan of attack on that yet. We know we have plenty to do, but don't know exactly how we're gonna spend it.
Was it McCrillis, and there was one other road that had it, right?
Oh, it's more than that.
Is it?
It's-
Okay.
Yeah, it's around.
Rental equipment.
Yeah, most of this has been that was it 2 years ago we started using a heavy-duty screener at the pit? This says excavator, we don't need to,
that
we don't
was-
need that anymore, yeah. That's left over from last year.
But if we've had to rent this sand screener in the past years, what's driving the 10%, 10K increase?
We've been under budgeted for that. We've missed the last 2 years. Most of that's been the screener, more than an excavator.
Yep.
I think we'll probably be working on that number still,
Okay.
but that, what we did 3 or 4 years ago, we had just a box screener, I don't know what it's called, but, really slow operation. What we've been renting is where they got the track on it, what's it called, mechanized.
Yeah.
And we're having a survey done this year, next year for,
I think we're getting a price on that. I think we'll be asking you for that in a couple weeks for that
okay,
survey.
and that'll determine what's left and what's usable.
Yeah,
So that could dictate whether we're gonna,
yeah. What the hard part with the sand, once we know where it is, it'll be a little better, but really what they're doing now is digging around, looking for seams of it.
yeah.
And, when they find it, they excavate it, and then they screen it and prep it for winter, but,
Okay.
it's a fishing expedition sometimes.
So were you suggesting, Ben, that if we are, looking at a different source, that it could reduce the need for screening, or?
Right.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, we will eventually, if we don't find another gravel pit that we own, eventually we're gonna be in the business of buying winter
Yep.
sand.
Yep.
That's the future, we just don't know when that future starts.
Okay.
Other bigger changes, salt's always a wild card, but we know that price went up a little bit from last year, but we were way underspent last year, so. This is gonna be the year of, really getting a good grip of what we're using. I think I sent you the quantitative stuff that he's doing. We know what we've bought in the past, but we really don't know, we haven't tracked it very well. So this is the year for that. The big change in fuel is the fuel treatment system we installed this year to take care of the algae. Again, underspent thus far on that. Very weather dependent. And a few smaller equipment things, trench and pavement compactors. And we may be coming to you before year end. Our Public Works radios, how the radios in the
Yep.
trucks, run on a repeater that is in John Fernald's barn. The fire department's is there as well. It's great until the power goes out, and then if Johnny's home and can turn on the generator for us, great, then we can still use the radios. We need to get that onto public property
Yeah.
somehow. So we may be proposing something here before winter to move it to the square.
For the pavement compactor, what have we done in the past without that?
Either rolled it with some other piece of equipment, hand tamped it, I would assume, just kind of made do. Perhaps they've rented one for bigger patch jobs, but I don't think so. This is a repair thing, this is not a big roller thing, it's a,
So we're looking at a 2-ton compactor type roller.
it's not a roller.
So
It's
we're at a hand one.
yeah.
Okay,
Okay, well, those are fairly inexpensive.
okay.
Yeah. You know, we don't do big enough jobs to,
Well, that's what that was what I was curious about, yeah.
well, no, it's hand operated, it's not ride on.
Right,
They
hand
have a
operated,
roll
right.
on it,
Yeah,
but it's-
yeah,
Right.
It's not
That's
a
like-
vehicle, yeah.
That's like
Yeah.
$700 or $800 for one of those, so, yeah.
Okay.
So, well, Sean can give us details on all that stuff, but that's,
And the trench thing, what,
trench compactor, probably a similar piece of equipment, but I don't know.
okay.
I know they just did a trench safety workshop a couple months ago. They probably realized they didn't have something that they ought to, but
Okay.
I don't know. Sean can give us more on that.
Shim and seal coat.
Shim and seal
Everybody's
coat.
favorite line.
I think we probably ought to rebrand this somehow, but we'll have some decisions to make on Ledge Farm and what we want to do. Our engineers are working on the next phase or the finish engineering and cost estimating right now, so before year end, we're gonna have to make a decision on what do we propose for next year. You know, we'll have good cost data in a week on what it took us to do what we just did. And we have to decide, do we, as we talked about when Sean was here 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, what do we ask town meeting for on that road reconstruction warrant article, and do we use this money for Ledge Farm as well? We're coming up on that decision, so, we'll see what that number turns into. We won't move this number dramatically, but the question is, how are we gonna use it? If we don't use it there, we got plenty of other things we can do. Let's see, recycling, the biggest unknown at this point is what the testing regimen is gonna be for the PFAS at the landfill.
Right.
We heard from DES about 3 weeks ago what they wanted, and our engineers are working on a response to them to propose a final action plan about where we're gonna test and how often we're gonna test. So we don't know if they're gonna accept that yet, or it's, you know, that's where we are with that. We're hoping that we don't have to do a whole lot of surface water monitoring or dig new wells. You know, given that we're not finding it anywhere off-site, we're approaching it that way, hopefully. So that number's gonna change before year end. Solid waste disposal, so we're in a multi-year contract with Waste Management. That rate goes up 3.5% in January. Our volume is creeping up still. So when we have a full year's volume information, we'll refine this number again, but we know it's going up just on the, volume generally is creeping up like it has. It's been very steadily increasing slowly for 4 or 5 years now. I wouldn't expect that to change. Anything that's happening in the recycling market shows up really more on the revenue side, although sometimes we have some, like paper we're paying to get rid of at times, and that moves this number as well.
8-inch pusher plow.
Pusher plow for the Bobcat, for cleanup work. They've always wanted something there, so,
Oh, I'm sorry, it says 8 foot.
yeah.
Yeah, that's for their Bobcat thing there. I still think that they should get the old highway truck.
Yes, well, if we replace it,
Well, right now, we have more trucks than employees.
yeah. Yeah, we'll come back to that one.
Okay.
I'm not married to that solution.
Okay.
Well, if it's a plow, what does it get attached to?
Bobcat.
Oh, sorry, okay, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Welfare and social services, I'm still getting requests for the social service stuff. That won't be any dramatic changes there.
I'm sorry, Chris, can we just back up for
Yep,
one moment?
sorry.
Back onto the recycling center.
Yep.
Internet capability?
Yeah, so what we have up there now is a copper dial-up phone.
Oh, okay.
The cheapest way to get, the reason we want to get in it up there is so that we can do a lot of the reporting stuff that we do. Actually, Brianne, the supervisor of recycling center, comes into the office to do computer work and, enter all the
Okay.
stuff, all of our tracking and all that stuff.
Okay.
She could actually do on-site, perhaps while doing other things.
Makes sense.
And so turns out the cheapest way to do that is through cell service there, rather than running new.
And how's the cell coverage in that area?
That's what we're running some tests on
Okay.
that, so we'll see. We don't have a computer there at the moment, so.
Gotcha,
we're gonna
okay.
Take one of those, one of these Windows 7 machines that doesn't survive here is headed up there, if we can find a way to keep connected to the outside world. All right, so I barreled ahead. Anything else on that?
Nope.
Welfare and social services, Sue Benoit, our welfare officer, continues to hang on and still do the work, and, every once in a while threatens to retire, but hasn't yet, so that could change things for us, without much notice, but fortunately, we haven't had a lot of demand there. We'll be okay budget-wise. Recreation, we've got, what's here? Not a whole lot happening here. So what we're paying, just the payroll piece is the biggest one. You may recall when we took on the after-school program, we picked up another part-time to full-time thing there. About half of those costs are being applied to the rec revolving fund and the after-school, before-school program. That all nets out here, so the changes in staffing there don't really end up costing much on the operating budget side.
Yep.
That's how we do that. And programmatically, no big changes expected. That would, they're general fund related.
Just, it's a stupid little one, but the rec equipment, $300, we'd like to raise the line for storage purchases for equipment, beach programs, and holiday stuff. Now that the back building is cleaned out, what is that like?
They're actually in the middle of, they built some shelves and they're buying some
So it's-
Tupperware buckets and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they're gonna try and keep some of the beach stuff at the beach.
Okay,
And they have to secure that a little differently. It's that kind of stuff.
yep, okay. Look at what the PLIA did with the big, metal, chests chained to trees or chained to a sign down there.
Yeah, that didn't work, did it?
It did for a couple of years. But the point is just, if they're looking at leaving stuff there, make sure it's secured.
Oh, yeah. There's a shed there at the beach.
Okay,
And they're
fine.
gonna tune that up, and, I think they're planning to leave a little bit more stuff there.
Okay.
Let's see. All right, anything else there?
No,
Library, this is the first, pass from them. Usually get a more detailed breakdown later from their internal budget. Remember, this is
Yep.
just that one appropriation that you make. In talking with Liz, the library director, no big programmatic staffing, scheduling changes expected there, that will change the budget. And we're getting down into little stuff here. Debt service, we just made our last payment on the salt sheds, so that goes away. These are all, you remember, these are all constant principal declining interest arrangements that we use for these, so you see the interest fade down over time. We don't retire any of these for a couple more years. We're carrying everything we have here. The next thing that we get out of is 2024, the landfill. So that's there for a while. And that's that.
So Chris, it's one of the, if I'm interpreting this correctly, it's one of the larger increases that we've had on the town budget side.
Certainly in the first draft, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, first draft, but also, it's predominantly driven at this point by, shifts in headcounts from part-times to full-time for better service and such, okay.
Yep. And we've also struggled in this labor market, you know,
Yeah,
we're
Everybody.
chasing things.
Everybody's chasing,
Yeah.
everybody's
Right.
hurting.
And that shows up sometimes in wages, but also in our full-time, part-time decisions,
Yeah.
yeah,
you know, what we need to do to attract people.
Yeah.
So that's a factor. Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
And I don't know if I might have told you this in writing, the rest of the spending stuff at this point looks pretty constant.
Yep.
We'll have to go through that in the CIP context, but reserve fund appropriations, we don't see any big changes there. Ledge Farm is gonna come back there, so what our total spend coming out of that is unknown. You know, last year we had data terminals, that was a tax impact item. We won't do that again. We'll start saving for the next reval, so the smaller dollar things, but nothing crazy on the want.
Anybody else want to add to? John, Tyler?
I think it's a good first pass, Chris.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so we'll go right on to the cable franchise.
Okay, you have a note from the tech director at the school. Y'all have some comfort with how the cable franchise fee works, fund works. I think this is the first of a couple small to mid-sized requests from the school. This fund replenishes just fine. We have some work to do in here, but that's gonna be a 2020 project.
When you say in here, just in here, or are we gonna do this?
We gotta look at the whole thing.
Okay.
We gotta look at the issue of meetings not recording and airing, and
Yeah,
that's the big issue.
We have a global challenge with that system.
Okay.
And would love to get to the point where we can stream it, but, you know,
Yeah.
All right, so, based on this, you'll look for a motion.
if you're comfortable with it, I don't see.
Anybody have any questions or?
Problems with the concept.
No? Donna?
No.
No. Okay, if someone would like to make a motion?
Now, I'll make a motion that the board approve the expenditure of up to $2,600 for the cable franchise fund for replacement of the school audio equipment.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Donna seconds. All in favor? Okay, so that takes care of that. On to the Class 5 road standards. I would like to say, in the absence of Tony, I'm not sure the board should proceed any further in regards to this because we don't have a full board. And I think it's imperative that we have Tony's input in this as well. How does the rest of the board feel?
His email said, go forward, I think.
His email did go forward. Yeah, I agree with you that we should have full board input, but I'm hesitant to wait another 2 weeks.
Yes,
And so
that's where I'm at, yeah.
I'm happy to postpone the discussion if we pick another date soon that we can meet in another session.
Can I throw two things in?
Sure.
Yeah.
So we left off with, you've seen this already, and you said to Sean and I, go write something that we can use for lesser roads, basically. Adopt
Yep.
this in a way that you might use for that purpose. we have tasked our engineers with doing that, and I think they're gonna have something to us maybe as soon as next week. We basically posed the question to them, what can we do that's less than this standard that is still safe to drive on and not a big liability for the town? And, you know, how can we? And the only other new piece of information that you have is attorney.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know what we were hoping to accomplish tonight anyway, lacking some other, you know, input from the engineers. I just wanted to give you an opportunity.
Do you think maybe we could have something by Monday, or maybe next Wednesday at the latest? Like Donna said, I think we owe it to the folks that live on these roads and the rest of the town to ensure we get something moving in a direction that,
The last time, let me see what the, I mean, we can push for whatever we want. I don't know what I got a note yesterday. Early next week.
so, feel comfortable with the rest of the board making another meeting for next week.
Zoning board is
Anything on Wednesday? So if we say something on Monday, I don't know if they're gonna have anything back by Monday.
Wednesday's
Yeah, Wednesday is good.
Yeah, that's right.
Because there's zoning in here, we can take it.
Yeah, okay.
We don't have to meet in here.
So why don't,
You like planning board.
Tyler, John, you feel good about next Tuesday?
I feel good about tonight, but
I know, but as
I
we've already,
was reading this and, you know,
I think in what Chris was saying, I think it'd be behoove of us to get some information from the engineers as well, so we can make a more definitive and obviously educated decision on this.
so just for the people here, what is the engineer gonna exactly tell us? Just so they can be clear, you know, go over that a little bit for them.
Yeah, so what you have is what we suggested the standard be for, Class 5 roads outside of the subdivision process, so a town-built road or a.
Existing stuff.
Or pre-existing Class 5 roads. And then you said that we don't know that that's a realistic standard to achieve for roads coming up to Class 5 or being considered for Class 5 because of the widths or the road base requirements or what have you, or the rights of way, all those things. So where we wanted to go was to say, well, if we were going to have a standard that wasn't so stringent for, I think Tony's words was legacy roads, roads that we consider private roads, Class 5 roads, we still need a standard to judge that by, to fairly evaluate it, to establish a cost of. So what we've asked the engineer is what could we do that is less than this standard and still be safe to drive on and still be free of liability for the town and still be maintainable. Anytime you take on a lot of liabilities for it, and from that. So what can we do from an engineering point of view that meets both of those?
Okay.
Is that,
No, I just
Answer your
wanted, I just wanted to make
question.
sure people were
okay.
knowing why we were waiting, what we were doing.
So Ben, I agree. Information. I think we should try to meet Monday or Tuesday of next week, but not Wednesday.
My bad, I forgot
No,
that
no.
next week was the holiday. My apologies.
But I can't believe it's Thanksgiving
It's
next
crazy,
week.
isn't it?
But I would like to suggest that, in the event that there's someone who can't meet next week, that we move forward anyway. 'Cause
Fair enough.
We can't continue this, we don't have the
Fair
whole
enough.
board here. So I'd just like to, and just to be clear, like, what is the outcome of that? So you're gonna come to us with a set of, standards from the engineers, right? We've got this, we've got the standards from the engineers. Is the expectation that we're going to approve to adopt one of those sets of standards at that meeting?
I'd like everyone to weigh in on that, and to include Tony. I would like us to come up with some sort of, standard.
Yeah, no, I agree,
Yeah.
but
But, whatever that standard may be, I want to ensure that nothing is going to change anything for this year,
correct.
this season, so.
Yeah, we've
That,
said that.
okay, I just want to reiterate for particularly the folks at home, that nothing will change this year.
Yeah, so all I'm just trying to get at is, what's the decision point? Like, we're gonna review this information next week, is that also a decision meeting?
I'd like us to move forward on that.
Yeah, I mean, I would like it to be a decision meeting,
Yes,
yeah,
yes, I would agree. Tyler?
Yep,
John?
Absolutely.
Okay,
the 26th, Tuesday, there's nothing going on here.
okay.
Tuesday, 26th is fine. And to the extent that you can get information out to people,
Yeah, as soon as we get it from them, we'll get it to you.
yeah, and if you could put some pressure on them, because it would be ideal for us to get it,
Yes.
like,
Yeah, Friday.
Friday.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think what you're gonna see is where the differences are gonna be are in width, road base, height,
Well, they're going to be,
those kind of things. It's not gonna be, the framework isn't gonna change.
Right.
It's,
Yeah,
cost savings come from.
so again, just to be clear, it's kind of like, we've got this draft, but then we're pushing it, kind of like, what's the minimum? So, based on the guidance of the lawyer, we're not adopting multiple standards, we're adopting
one
one
standard.
standard.
One.
And it could be this, it could be what the engineers come back with, or some modification.
Somewhere in between.
You want to, if you want to take the attorney's advice as set one standard, I think that would probably set a pretty low standard for for existing class 5 roads. So if I were you, I wouldn't be afraid to have two standards. I know what the attorney told you.
Okay,
But
that's what I was
I
trying to
don't
get
think
at.
we don't want to move back low quality stuff that we've already invested in, and
Yep.
there, we don't have a lot of roads that we own now that we want to be narrower or bumpier.
Yeah.
Right, so
Okay,
if you set a very low standard, then
then,
it sets up down the road, well, we can defer this, or we can shave 4 feet of pavement off this road 10 years from now if we want to, because it meets the standard. Be a lot cheaper. You want to do that, but
I'd be pretty bad of the board who's ever sitting there to think that that'd be okay to do.
well,
To say, let's save money by making the road crap.
Right.
Lessen the quality.
well,
No,
that's,
no,
so remember that when it comes time to set a standard, that, you don't want to back up, you don't want a lousy road, you don't want the town to own a lousy road, right? That's,
it could
Well,
impact,
based on what the
impact
attorney was
maintenance and
saying, you just come up
repairs
with.
Absolutely.
that kind of
Flat
stuff,
for all.
so. I mean, having two standards,
What Don is
one
proposing.
maintains what we want of the town, and the other provides a pathway, essentially.
I don't think you should be afraid of that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying ignore your attorney, but
Can I have the other board members, Tyler and John, weigh in on this? As far as one or two standards?
So the two standards are, are we talking specifically about the class 5 roads and having two standards, or all? all roads.
This only applies to class 5 roads, as you have it drafted.
But what the two, correct me if I'm not stating this correctly, but by having what the two standards does, kind of like the lesser of the two isn't the right language, but the more flexible of the two potentially gives a path for some of the emergency lane roads that we're looking at now, gives them a path to get to potentially a town road. That's why two.
John?
I like the two standards.
Okay.
I just, things started because of that reason right there.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation today if that wasn't part of the, so to eliminate that down would be just, we could waste our time this whole time.
So you're saying you're in favor of 2, Tyler, you're in favor of 2, Donna, you're in favor of 2?
Yep.
Well, that's the majority right there.
Are you not?
I'm on the fence about it.
Well, you can't be till we come vote.
Well, and I could leave it like that, but I do feel an obligation to at least explain myself as to what's troubling me as far as, you know, making a commitment to either 1 or 2. You know, cost is going to be the biggest factor, in my eyes, and whatever standard we adopt. But I do understand the complexity of this situation that we're in when it comes to these, as Tony dubbed them, legacy roads. We do have to fix this once and for all. So I'm going to say right now that I'm going to support 2 road standard for.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will, when we meet next week, when we see what the differences are.
Yes.
Between them.
All right, but with that understanding, I do want to make sure that we move forward with some sort of decision. As I said earlier, we do owe it to the people that live on those roads as well as the rest of the town.
100% agree.
So, can I get an agreement out of it, the other board members? John?
I don't see the cost factor of being a big, you know.
Well, I mean, we can debate that next week.
Oh,
but,
Yep, yep.
So, anybody else want to add to that?
No, I think
No.
that's good. I just, like you, I think we need to keep it moving forward.
Okay. Anybody in the room want to add? We'll keep it.
The meeting, next Tuesday will be at 6:30.
You want to make it 6 or 6:30?
6:30.
6:30.
Tough time
Sorry,
getting
it's
for
good.
6:30.
Thank you.
Nobody else? Okay. Any other business? No? Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
We have no non-public tonight, do we?
Nope.
No. All right. Thank you, folks, for coming.